hard hitting. I love that intro.
Good. Thanks. I worked hard on that.
Yeah,
I still
no,
need to make some updates. I'm working on it.
no, man, it just pumps me. It pumps me the hell up. Yeah.
Good. I hope it pumps our audience up too. That's what
Yes,
it's there for.
that would be nice.
So, what are we talking about today, Ray? You seem somewhat confused.
Well, you want me to pull up the summary?
I believe today we are talking about EV range, and I know we've
Yes.
talked about this before on the battery technology.
Yes.
And I wanted to more hit on how much range do you really need? Like, do EVs need to be on parity with ICE vehicles at this point? Is it realistic that if you're going to be charging at home, especially, so that's where most EVs are still charged. We
Mhm.
understand the use case that, like me, who live in an apartment without a charger right now. So, like, that's more the fringe at the moment for EV owners. So if you're charging it at home, how much range do you really need? Is 290 miles? Do you really need more than that?
Well, are you asking me?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
just kick it
If
off. I'm just going to ask you, and then
yeah,
we'll,
if you're asking me that, I don't think this is my own personal opinion, and my opinion has changed since I started doing this show regularly with you. Okay, I don't think range is is quite as important as I once did. And what I mean by that is whether the range is 290 miles when you're on the road or whether it's 400 miles. That to me, because who the hell's driving 290 miles straight? You need to
yeah,
take a break. And I know in my Mini, when I'm driving, like, heck, I could be an hour and 10 minutes into the drive and go, hey, you want a cup of coffee? You want to take a break? There's always something there to remind me that I need to stay fresh. I think what's more important for electric vehicles than range is the time that it takes to actually charge the vehicle when you're stopping to add some juice to it. And I need to ask you a question, having said what I just said. Don't the high speed chargers degrade the batteries faster if that's all the type of charging that you do? Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
so it depends on the battery chemistry. Overall, you are correct.
Okay.
Like Tesla's 4680 cells actually suggest you do charge them up to 100%. They don't really degrade much on the fast charging. So it depends on the battery technology. But I would
Okay.
say, since we are talking broadly at the moment,
Yes.
yes, you are right. Supercharging all the time is not good for your battery. It's probably not going to affect it in the first 3 to 5 years.
Yes.
Which is why we talk about like recurrence report and other things where you need to check the battery health if you're buying a used EV.
Yes.
That's, I think, so very important on checking on a used EV. You and as the first owner, you're probably not going to really notice much.
Would do you think, you know me, my mind just, we get on these things and my mind starts
Yeah,
thinking of crazy things.
that's
Do
that's
you
why you're the co-host.
Well, I don't know. It's because you couldn't get anybody else to do it, damn it. That's not so.
No.
Do you think that future battery technologies will allow for supercharging or high speed charging, whatever the hell the terminology is, without degrading the battery? Which, if that's the case moving forward, then I would think that would be an important aspect for people to go, you know what? I would do an EV.
Yeah, I mean, I think as battery chemistry improves, I know this is something that Tesla particularly is looking at. I know all automakers are probably looking at this, but Tesla's looking hard at this. at the battery chemistry and technology, so people can fast charge more often
Mhm.
on a regular basis without degrading the battery. Obviously, battery degradation is the number one target, I think, for Tesla right now. I
Yeah.
think they're comfortable in their range, like 300, 400 miles, as Igor says. I think they're all okay with that. Like
Yeah.
yeah, you don't really need much more than that. Maybe in the Tesla Semi and stuff, of course, you'd want more than that. But short of that, um, I think what they're really trying to work on is degradation and of course efficiency. Being able to have smaller batteries that go that same range. But you're right. I think charging is super important. Like we talked about with Justin last week, the 7-Eleven charging
Mhm.
stations, and they've said they aim to be the largest charging network in the United States. So them and all the companies they own installing chargers everywhere. To your point, they would need to be fast chargers, right? Because if you're going to run into 7-Eleven, grab your coffee and your donut and get out of there, you're talking what, 5-7 minutes?
I don't know anybody that goes to a 7-Eleven and says, I think I'd like to spend about a half an hour here.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a 7-Eleven. It's a convenience store. It's there for your convenience. Um, and so when you run into a store like that, if you've spent more than 5 minutes, you've done something wrong. And the only reason that you would end up spending more than 5 minutes is because the cashier is overwhelmed with the line of 20
yeah,
people trying to buy their hot dogs and their bag of chips and their Slurpee, and they're moving at a snail's pace. But otherwise, typically you're in and out. And I would also think, like I mentioned last week, that 7-Eleven is not known as a discount store when you go in
yeah,
there to buy stuff. So I would think you're going to pay way more there per kilowatt hour to charge than you would at other places. But that'll be the beauty of it, because people tend to be um lazy,
yeah,
and it's like, yeah, well, okay, I'll pay a few dollars more for the convenience of it. Um, so yeah, but my whole thing today is, I'm starting to realize that an excessive range isn't really all that important. It's the amount of time it takes me to charge so that I can go drive another 2 or 3 hours at a time before I need to take a break and charge again.
yeah. I agree. I am doing I'm doing 80% charge. That is the max I charge mine currently because
Uh-huh.
I am all on supercharger. So I try
Yes.
to preserve as much as I can. Um, and I only do it once a week. And that's fine for me. From the
Yeah.
amount I drive, which is a little bit every day, not much. I go to some place that I happen to shop. I can go in there. It takes about 30 minutes because I tend to get down to about 10%. I
Yeah.
try not to go below 10%. So 10 to 80 is where I keep mine. And, I do my shopping. I come out and I get in and I'm done for the week. And, it's cost me $12 and I go.
Yeah.
So for me, the only thing about range would be, as someone who lives in an apartment, how often I have to charge up.
Yes.
And that's it for me. Bigger battery means I have to charge less often, but otherwise, like it, it's really not that big of a deal. Um, for
Uh,
me, for me personally, range. You're right. Charging time is much better. Is
and
much
I
more,
think
and charging curve. If you're going to be on a road trip,
yes.
that last 20%, depending on the charge curve of your vehicle, that could take more time than the first 80% that you're charging. And
Gotcha.
that becomes a really big deal too. If I'm going, because I drive down to LA once a quarter, just to blow off steam and relax and go to the studios and the beaches and stuff. And on that trip, I don't want to have to stop for 30 minutes each stop. I want to stop for the amount of time that I would normally take with. So I go to the bathroom, I get another drink, so I have to go to the bathroom again, stretch my legs. 15 minutes is about right for me, 15, maybe 20, depending on the line. And that's about what it takes to charge for me.
Well,
Uh,
I would just think that the future, that the selling point for all this, at least in my mind, and being somebody that spent 43 years in retail automotive, and obviously it was all internal combustion engine. Um, the whole selling point moving forward is going to be, hey, when you pull in to charge your car, it's not going to take any longer to charge your electric vehicle than it would have taken to fill up your gas vehicle. Okay. And once they can figure out how to make that happen, then the switch over from gas to electric will accelerate exponentially, because people will have no excuse not to anymore. Because my excuse when we first started this program was, well, there's no infrastructure. Okay, there's not enough infrastructure for people to be able to charge their cars. Uh, it takes too long to charge the damn car, and yeah, well, I can't go as far on a charge as I can on. Well, let's face it. At 3 hours, even this old creaky guy, has to get up, has to go pee, has to stretch my legs. Whether so, how far could I? In 3 hours, how far could I have gone? 200 miles? If I'm actually just really speeding along, well,
yeah.
that seems like more than enough range to me at this point. I'm starting, as Igor mentioned, I'm starting to get it a little bit. Okay, and it's because I have a much greater understanding of it than I did before. Even
Yeah.
even when Zach and I drove cross country, we still stopped every 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have, as I get older, the more I do my trips, the more I'm like, I need to stop. I used to be, uh, me too. I used to be, as Igor says, it does indeed take me exactly 6 hours from here to get down
Yeah,
to LA. And in my 20s, I did that in one shot because I was always excited to get there, and then,
yeah.
stopped 3 times on the way home because I wasn't excited to come back. But now I'm kind of like, yeah, about every 2 hours, I do need to, like, I need to, get out and stretch my legs and, restructure my back so I can keep moving. And go to the restroom because I tend to drink the whole way. So I'm just drinking a bottle of water for 2 hours. Yeah, I need to stop. Uh,
So so the future then is quicker charging, and to accommodate quicker charging without degrading the battery,
yeah,
it's coming up with different battery chemistries, um, that will allow that to happen. And
yeah. So you almost never charge. You never want to fully charge on a road trip. You'd spend more time in that last 80 to 100 charging than you will just making more frequent stops.
wow.
Is yeah, because of charging curve. I think it's a really big deal. Is the charging curve needs to improve. You need fast charging that doesn't degrade the battery exactly. Um,
So what battery chemistry would allow that to be? Would that be the solid state batteries that some manufacturers are thinking of? Are there other battery types that are, in developmental stages that,
mhm.
hell, I certainly don't know about, that would allow for quicker charging without degrading a battery?
Solid state's definitely one of them, and that's the most promising that is on being worked on right now by
Hmm.
many companies. Most prominently, of course, Toyota.
Yes.
Um, really wanting to get into the solid state. I haven't heard that Tesla's working on that part of it much, But I know other promising or another promising technology that they're working on is lithium air batteries, which could completely revolutionize things. Don't ask me how that works. I don't
Okay.
know enough about it. I'll dig into it. So I think that is a Justin show where we can talk about the specifics of that. But I know they are working on lithium air. That's further behind than solid state at this point, but it promises very, very, very little degradation, and like solid, and much like solid state, reduces thermal runaway, uh, which is of course a concern on EVs. Not that they are more likely to catch fire than your ICE vehicle, but when they do catch fire,
Yeah.
good luck putting them out. That's the problem with the EV fires. Is
Okay.
not that they're likely to catch on fire. They're not. They're much less likely than anything else. But when they do,
What would the other aspect be? And I'm just throwing this out there because I know this impacts range. Would the other aspect be developing batteries and battery chemistry that um, weather will have less impact on as far as anticipated range? Because I've heard you and others mention that, if it's hot out and you're driving on a highway and you have your air conditioning on, that sucks juice out of your battery, which lowers your range. If it's really cold out, cold impacts
yeah.
range. So is is there, I'm assuming that battery makers are working on ways to mitigate how weather can impact um, range.
Yeah, I mean, seller, you're looking at battery technology improvements. Tesla's heat pump really helps with that a lot now too. So there's a variety of ways to get around with the cold. I know
Yes.
as so many EVs are sold in colder climates around the world. In the US, they're sold in more California, Texas, Florida,
Yes.
and the environment sort of speaks to that. But, the Nordic countries, especially, enormous EV charging adoption. And, it's cold there
Well,
a
I was going to
lot.
say, yeah,
So,
isn't the EV adoption like in Norway astronomically
yeah,
high?
yeah,
Um,
over
but
50%.
okay, but then again, it's not that large of a country. So is it that range doesn't become that much of an issue in a smaller country like Norway, even though it gets exceedingly cold?
I think that's definitely part of it. And, I just like here, most of the people there who buy EVs own homes and they're charging at home.
Yes.
So when you're plugging in every night and you can, set your car to charge in the middle of the night when it's cheapest, you don't really think of it. You just wake up every day and your battery's full and you just get in and you drive, you do your stuff, you go home, you plug it in, and you're not even worried about the charging network because it's not even a thing for you. And I think at that the 290 miles, which I don't know what that is in kilometers. It's like 68 or something. I don't know. Remember. Um, Again, my math is bad right now. Uh, but at that range, it's really not that big of a deal for them. So they don't need the charging network. That said, they have one of the largest charging networks. So because of their EV adoption. So I mean, it does speak to that, as Zach said here. What's holding back adoption? It really is education. I think you've sort of alluded to that yourself, Ray.
I didn't know.
Is if you don't know, then there's a lot of misconceptions
Yes.
out there about EVs. There's a lot of people who are out there to sort of make up stuff. We've heard that a lot on this channel, on your channel with Zach, and on the main channel. I read through, and there's some weird things that get said, and you're like, where
Mhm.
where did that even come from? And it's because it's out there whispered in the social media and the people with agendas, and you go, huh, like that's, and people sort of dig in their heels, which is why we started this show, is so
Yes.
nobody on either side needs to dig in their heels and go, no, you're wrong. No, let's talk about it and let's separate fact from fiction. And then, you know, if, Phil, happy birthday, Phil. Um,
Is it his birthday today?
today is Phil's birthday.
Well, happy birthday, Phil.
Yeah. But he lives up in Lansing, Michigan. Maybe, he's in like 5 feet of snow. Maybe an EV is not right for him right now, but he knows the reason why, because he does a lot of driving. He likes
Mhm.
long distance driving, and he doesn't want to plug it in at home. Okay, great. So it's a legitimate complaint, but I do think the main thing holding people back is education and the thought process. Do you need 600-mile range, really?
No. Let me say this. I have tried in my lifetime to help um, grow salespeople's careers, hire salespeople who had never sold cars before. And, one of the things that I was always fond of saying is, well, as a new salesperson, you don't know what you don't know. Well, as somebody new to EVs, I am astonished that at how much I didn't know that I didn't know. Okay. I mean, what I have learned over the last several weeks is exponentially more than I ever knew about EVs, which have adjusted my thinking to a certain degree about EVs. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know, and um, this society that we live in at least in our country, where there's massive amounts of advertising that are used to formulate our opinions of things, whether it be via social media, whether it be through cable TV, whether wherever we're getting the information from and the advertising from. It just points out that somebody hasn't been doing a real good job of educating the public out there as to EVs, how it should all work, why it would be easier for it to work, and why range isn't nearly as important as many have conjectured that it should be.
Yeah, and if I may, everyone knows what I drive, I think, here. But I'm going to lay part of that at the feet of Tesla. Um, they're the number one players in this game. They really almost started the revolution. Yeah, Nissan Leaf and some others were before, but Tesla's lack of a marketing department, lack of advertising, became a lack of education. And if they really are all for adoption and they really want to accelerate that as they have, uh, there needs to be an education piece, and they have fallen short of anyone out there advertising. They get people like me who go and watch all their investor days and their battery
Mhm.
days and AI day, and consume and consume and consume. But you know what? I'm already sold.
Yes.
So you're preaching to the choir. You're not out there trying to educate the masses. And there's so much misinformation out there, from haters, from people outside of the industry, from people who just have a political opinion about either EVs or Elon Musk or whatever else it is, who are shoving out just misinformation out there all the time. And like anything, I think half of our world is misinformation on any given subject. But, those can dominate if there's not someone out there educating people on the process. And again, I'm going to use Tesla because they're the number one player, but it
Yes.
really goes for almost everyone. No one's out there with these great advertisements of of why this is good. Like even GM had the commercial on in the movie theaters for like 2 months before every movie about um, an EV for everyone, but they never spoke about why you should get an EV. They just spoke about the different EVs and you can
Hmm.
go do this and that, but they didn't speak as to why you should get an EV or the benefits or the misconceptions. Nobody's speaking about that in the industry, and that I think that is a huge mistake on everyone's is lack of education.
Well, when you look at automotive and everything that gets pushed on people is the latest and greatest with all the toys, with all the electronics, and and people see that so often that it shapes what it is that they're willing to buy. And I many years ago when I was a young man, I actually went to advertising school. My educational background was in advertising, journalism, and public relations. Um, and advertising is a form of propaganda.
Yeah.
Okay, that is designed to shape customers' opinions as to how they feel about things. It's very emotive. And so we get sold on the emotion of why we want all that technology, why we shouldn't settle for less than that. Well, if automobile manufacturers can and have created that over the last 40, 50, 60 years, there is no reason why those same manufacturers can't put together advertising that would encourage people to look at, drive, utilize EVs, and making that um, an an emotional purchase that they should make, and whether it be the range, whether it be the quick charging, whether it be you just show people, driving on their family vacation and stopping for 15 minutes to to charge their car for a little bit while they're stretching their legs and going on a pee break. Um, whatever it is. I mean, they could come up with the emotional advertisements that would signal to people that, maybe you really need to consider an EV.
Well,
And I don't understand why they haven't done that yet.
well, and it's to Susanna's point here, you know why they have because I will give you a quick story. On Sunday, I was charging,
Uh-huh.
and Cadillac did the thing that they're doing now, and they brought the Lyric to the Tesla charging station
Uh-huh.
for test drives to get Tesla owners to test drive, which some people find very annoying, and I loved
Yeah.
it. And I was one of the people who went, "Yeah, I want to
Yeah.
go. I want to test drive that.
Sure.
I'll be happy to leave my car charging while I test drive your Lyric." It was a very nice car. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
There were some issues I had with it, but that's another thing. Um, so I was going through that, and I was talking to the salesperson that was there
Yes.
to have people test drive the Cadillac Lyric.
Mm-hmm.
I asked him what the charging curve was, what the battery technology was. He couldn't even tell me Ultium. I'm like, really? You don't even know Ultium platform? Like, it's your. So I know that surprises you none, Ray, and it surprises me none because
Yeah.
dealers don't get, or salespeople, they're not trained. Like, it
In
just
many cases, yes.
shove out here. I mean, I've shared the story before, but Ray trained me more in car sales than my general manager, just by watching his videos. Uh, that's how I learned how to sell cars, because I watched your videos. So going into sales and talking to people. When I bought my Tesla, now I went to the Toyota dealership.
Mm-hmm.
The entire test drive, the salesman was asking me questions about the car. How do you
Sure.
do this? What's this? What does this mean? What about that? And I was happy to answer them. and I showed him, I literally showed him probably about 50 features he didn't know about
Wow.
on the Tesla. And we get into F&I, and he tells the F&I guy that, who also owns a Tesla, and he said, yeah, usually people who come in and buy Teslas know more than our salespeople.
Well,
And I was
but
like,
that's
and
one
I
of the for all the years I was in the business, that was one of the complaints I would hear most often from customers was that, well, I seem to know more about what it is I want to buy than your salespeople. Um,
mhm.
and that's a shame on management and shame on the salespeople for not wanting to know what it is that they're selling and actually develop their craft. Uh, part of selling is there's that old saying, it's called fab, features and benefits. Okay, if you as a salesperson are just listing the features and never explaining the benefit of that feature to the customer, you're not selling, you're just telling. Okay, and there's nothing when you do that that compels a customer to say, yeah, I want to buy it. You're having a one-way conversation when you do that. You need to go over the features and explain the benefit to the customer of what that feature is. And if as a salesperson you have no desire to either learn that or be able to do that, well, then you shouldn't be a salesperson. Um,
Yeah,
because
I mean,
customers come in, they want to get educated. They want to know that they're talking to somebody that actually has more knowledge about whatever it is that they're looking to buy, whether it be a car, a cell phone, a stereo, whatever it is. They either want to get validation on what they know from somebody that has greater knowledge, or they want to learn things from somebody that has the knowledge that they don't.
yeah,
And that's the real job of the salesperson, I think.
I agree. I agree. And it was one of those things. I had that. Like, I wasn't really much different when I was in the sales. People would come in for like the Tacomas. Those buyers also know what they're talking about. Oh
Yes.
boy, do they know what they're talking about. And they would get into these details, and I would start glazing over and like, I have no idea. But I was one of those people who were always very willing to say, you know what, I don't know. Let me find out.
Yes.
Let me either get you somebody over here who knows, or I'm going to Google this right now and I'm going to find out, because I wanted to learn so I could speak with my customer, answer their questions, and know whether that's beneficial for them or not.
Mhm.
But so many people are just like, I don't know. I had a lot of salespeople who would just sort of BS through the answers. And I think right now with EVs, that's a lot of what happens is you just sort of BS through it, and because you don't know. And a lot of salespeople don't seem to care. There's like, it's a car, it's an electric car. What do you need to know?
Yeah, and if you're working at a store that deals, I don't know, 98% of the time with just ICE vehicles, um, and you don't know a lot about your ICE vehicles, well, why the hell would you ever bother to learn anything about your EVs or the
Yeah,
potential for EVs moving forward? Um, so yeah,
and
that's a big part of it, but that all falls on the manufacturer, the manufacturer creating that emotional connection to an EV through education that they haven't done through their advertising. And it falls on dealer principals to insist that their staff be knowledgeable. And if they're not, you get rid of them. You
yeah,
just get rid of them. It's got to be part and parcel of what you do.
yeah. But I mean, for me, when I was in new sales, like, I really expected a lot more from my dealership on the training too. I would, so like my training, my all 100% of my training was, here's a brochure on Toyota Safety Sense. Here's a brochure on the Camry. Take 2 hours, learn that. I'm going to come around now, do a walk around on the car and sell me the car. I did that, and he's like, okay, you're good to go. Go sell everything. I'm like, okay, I know a Camry. I'm pretty sure we sell more than that.
You know,
What about all the other vehicles?
the best training I ever gave to a new salesperson uh, is I had that salesperson shadow me for 2 weeks. Okay, go out on appraisals with me when I appraised cars, sat at my desk with me when salespeople came in to discuss car deals and how you would structure a car deal and what you needed to say to it. And he sat there for 2 weeks and just soaked all of this in, knew the questions that I was going to ask the salesperson every time they came into my office. It was the same damn questions. He could anticipate what the question was going to be, so that when after 2 weeks of shadowing me and he went out and he worked with customers, it went so much. It was much more smooth of a proposition
Yep.
for him than any other training that I had ever given a salesperson. It was, yeah, product knowledge is important. Features and benefits is important. Understanding concepts of the deal are important. Understanding what is going to be asked of you by your sales manager, so that you know the information to garner from your customer before you come into your sales manager. Because I used to tell my salespeople, I am just like the GPS system in the car. Okay, I am your navigation system. And if you can't give me any information from your customer, then the likelihood of me coming up with the route to a sale is probably 1 in a billion. Okay. But, it would just be pure luck if we got to a sale. But if you can give me some information, then I can chart the real course for you to follow so that we can get to a sale.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and this is missing in the EV world now. Like the challenge to adoption, I think, isn't. So we all know the new EVs are really expensive.
Yes.
So that's still a niche, that's there. Used EVs is where you're going to end up seeing the most adoption. Even I bought a used Model
Mhm.
3. So those dealers need to learn that, and that needs to be going there. But you know what, Ray? We're up against the clock. We have a meeting
Yes.
today,
I
and
have to go make my lunch
yeah,
so I can eat it during Zach's meeting at 1:30.
and we need to jump off because I think we are triggering TJ here. Um, he does not like that
It's
that your
because
lights
they're
are on.
on a separate circuit. It's not that they're here. Wait a second. Jeez.
It's still off.
There. I don't know. Do they go on?
No, it's still
Yeah,
off.
but I have them on low. Yeah. So they really do work. I apologize, and it's different colored light bulbs in those sockets.
Oh,
Yeah. So there you
that would
have it.
drive me nuts too. Like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, it drove me nuts on the last show too, watching your one bulb out. But all right, so we want to go. I don't want to be late for Zach's meeting again.
No, we can't afford to be.
So thank you everyone for being here. We have a very special guest on a very special topic tomorrow, and I'm going to leave it as a mystery.
Okay, cool.
I don't think you even know, do you, Ray?
I don't.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. But you know what I'm looking forward to more?
Getting a sandwich?
My brisket sandwich that I'm about to make.
Oh,
Okay.
send one of those over here too.
You got it, my friend. Thank
All
you
right.
for today,
Bye,
Justin.
everybody.
We'll see you
Have a
back
great
here
day.
tomorrow.